everyone, and welcome to the council. I am that crypto chick. Joining me today is the Block Magi and Crypto Insider X. And today we're going to talk about a really exciting project, one of the most significant projects we've seen in 2018, an ambitious project. Project is DFINITY. Guys, what do you think about this project?
Yeah, I think DFINITY is definitely one that everyone should be watching. It's already got massive longevity within the space. This project's been going on for a good number of years. It's not one that's just like turned up in the last year or so. I think where they're actually going with this, it has massive impact, not just to blockchain technologies, but to technologies as a whole in the future.
They're calling themselves the NASA for decentralization. What do you think about that, Crypto Insider X?
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
We won't fine you, I promise. Your opinion's always welcome.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
You're such a bugger. This is, okay, so just so our community knows, this is what we have to deal with on a daily basis with Crypto Insider X. So Crypto Insider X. Look, you're in the crypto sphere. You've seen DFINITY. You know, we've talked about this. This has been around for a while. There's been a lot of talk about it for a while. It's not like one of these projects that you just hear come out of the woodworks and it's here and then gone the next day. This is a project that's really had a lot of chatter and hype for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even about the hype. There's a lot of projects that they're great for like gains, right? They're really good for if you get in and then you sell at 10x and you're like, perfect. And then, mission accomplished, right? So they're like, we're going to create a brand new, conductor through the blockchain. And everybody's like, oh my God, this is a lot of hype. And I don't know why, but everybody wants it. And that means I want it. And, I want to give you as much ether as I can. And then, it sells out in 42 milliseconds. And then everybody makes money. And then, like, nothing really happens after that most of the time. They might create a product that doesn't really get used. Or they might not create a product. It just ends up being a traded token. And that does happen a lot. With DFINITY, it's really not like that at all. It's like been around here for a while. They've been working on the project. They're working towards something that is real, something that is needed. And when it's completed, it will actually cause, some positive change and moving forward in the crypto sphere and possibly more. So I think that's the biggest thing in regards to DFINITY. It's not a flavor of the month. This is something that we were talking about earlier in the year, and this is something that we'll be talking about later in the year. Whether or not it's, still being, the raise is still going on, it's something that will continue to exist and will continue to be on everybody's minds or a lot of people's minds for a lot longer than a lot of projects, which in little pockets may have way, way more hype for that 7-day stretch.
Yeah, we've been talking about DFINITY for quite some time now. We've been talking about it amongst ourselves. We've actually had a couple conversations with the team from DFINITY. We actually have for our community an interview with Arthur Falls, who is Director of Communications for DFINITY. And we asked him some questions. So why don't we let him tell us, first of all, a little bit about DFINITY, what it is, and then we'll come back and chat a little bit more.
DFINITY is a global supercomputer, or you might call it a world computer or an internet computer. And it takes its cues from what we saw with Ethereum, which gives the entire world the ability to use the single central computing resource. One of the catches, though, with prior systems is that they don't increase in performance or increase in capacity with the number of computers that are plugged into them. This applies to all blockchains. So what DFINITY aims to do is to create a blockchain-based internet computer, very similar to others that we've seen, only the DFINITY difference is, among others, that it increases in its capacity and performance with the number of computers that are actually plugged into the network. What we hope to do with this is provide traditional enterprises who currently rely on services like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Services or Microsoft Azure, a decentralized alternative. And there are lots of advantages to having a decentralized alternative. The real beauty of what DFINITY is doing is that we've found a way to make this thing cheap and fast and basically give you the ability to have the most secure possible information infrastructure, the absolute most secure possible. So there's nothing in the world more secure than DFINITY, but for a very low price without any capital outlay, and it's compatible with any programming language that you want to use.
All right, cheap, fast, secure. I like the idea of that. An ambitious project. At Crypto Insider X, do they have the team that can follow up on this project?
Yeah, they have a really strong team. There's like over 20 individuals on the team, and I don't even see any weak links. So not only do they have I think they have quality and quantity. They've got Dominic Williams. He's a crypto theoretician and entrepreneur. He was working with Threshold Relay and PSC chains. You've got, that was the chief scientist. You got the head of engineering, Timo, a professor of mathematics and cryptography. You've got Andreas Rosberg, who was previously was a staff engineer at Google. And there he was he co-designed WebAssembly virtual machines. So, I mean, they're all really, they basically range from strong to very strong. And if it wasn't for that, then this would literally just be a pipe dream of I saw a project yesterday where they're like air taxis, and it was literally about flying cars. And it's just that's what happens a lot of time in blockchain. They just come out and say, we're going to make flying cars. And you're like, yeah, okay, sure. That, even though that's so much of a stretch, this kind of a project, with randomness and all of that it entails, if it wasn't for the team and if it wasn't for how strong they really are, it would be basically like saying we're going to create, flying cars for you through the blockchain.
Well, although Arthur's not flying cars, we're always interested in hearing about, why certain key members get involved in a project and what guides them and directs them to that project. So we asked Arthur to tell us a little bit more about him and his journey with DFINITY.
At the end of 2014, I was very disillusioned with blockchain because I'd deeply followed for 2 years. I had this vision that blockchain could change the world. I saw all these projects emerge that aimed to do just that, and none of them delivered. Or by the end of 2014, none of them appeared, or none of them looked like they were going to deliver. 2015 was quite a dark time for blockchain. The price was down and nothing was really happening. Ethereum came along and it promised two things: unlimited features. So because you had, you could run any kind of program on it, or you could write a program with any capabilities and run it on Ethereum. This meant that you could build anything. At the same time, there was this vision for Ethereum to scale out and become this huge new system that had unlimited throughput and unlimited capacity. But I did not see a credible path to that happening. And in 2006, early 2016, DFINITY, or speaking to Dominic Williams, who is basically the inventor of some of the core technology at DFINITY, he had some ideas that I thought really could work. And so I followed DFINITY for a really long time, interviewed Dom numerous times as the technology developed. And then toward the end of last year, I left Consensus, which was a Ethereum-oriented development house and incubator, and joined the DFINITY team. And so that's kind of was my path to DFINITY. I think that at the end of the day, it's really just the collective story of the advancement of blockchain technology and the movement toward a new architecture for the internet.
All right, Block Magi, do you think that blockchain has evolved to the point that a project like this can exist?
I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, we've gone from a stage of blockchain being seen as just a currency to the Ethereum project, where we had smart contracts and people who just make applications based on smart contracts. And we're now moving to phases where we're seeing blockchain more as a service, and to also moving out of these kind of niches into to develop for programming for all types of technologies.
Well, I think before we can actually look at the future, we have to look at the past. Arthur explains to us kind of the evolution of the internet and where DFINITY fits in.
Mainframes are or were the mainstay of computing infrastructure back in the days of intranets, before the internet. Or they existed concurrently with the internet, but with the kind of the mass adoption of the internet, which we generally refer to as Web 1, we saw this kind of decentralization of the mainframe computing. And that decentralization gave us the internet of the 90s. And that was basically built on some really basic technologies. One technology that enabled computers to talk to one another, and another technology that enabled computers to find one another on the internet. That is called the Transmission Control Protocol and the Internet Protocol. And that is what the entire internet is still built on. But the second generation of the internet that we know as Web 2 emerged. And what characterized Web 2 was organizations like Google and Facebook, Microsoft, eBay, PayPal. They built these services on top of or using TCP/IP. And these services enabled businesses that used them to cut costs and provide a richer experience to the customer. But the trade-off with that was that the customers had to rely on these central service providers. Businesses were no longer building on top of an open protocol, they were building on top of other businesses. And the problem with this is exactly is the reversion to the centralization of kind of the mainframe days. And this has meant that the internet itself is now vulnerable to attacks. And we see that whenever we see these major data breaches. I mean, the classic example is Yahoo. I mean, they lost hundreds of millions, or maybe even over 1 billion. I think they might have lost 1.5 billion user accounts. Like everyone on the internet practically has been compromised through these data breaches because they use these central platforms. And this is not what the internet was supposed to be, right? Supposed to be. So the idea is, if we can create a protocol that provides the services of these centralized services, but is in fact decentralized, then maybe we can prevent this kind of these kind of data leaks and these kind of damaging attacks from happening in the future. This idea of a decentralized internet, this has existed for a really long time. It hasn't manifested, or we've reverted to a centralized model. And now there's a dream to bring back decentralization. And it does look now that we have the component technologies to make this happen. And I suppose I'm probably leaping ahead a little bit here, but those component technologies I would are three, basically. The blockchain data structure, that's the big one. Obviously, we can see this being used repeatedly, but it's not getting, we don't see it used in a high performance setting. There is a need to make this thing high performance. And in order to make it high performance, we need randomness. So to give you an example of how difficult randomness is to create and the importance of randomness, Bitcoin burns more energy than Ireland just to randomly select someone to choose what is true on the network in a way that no one can cheat, right? That is how important randomness is. That's how valuable it is. All of the energy consumption of Ireland, you know, just to keep Bitcoin going, and it's all about the randomness. And so what we've found is a way to produce randomness for free. We're not the only people who have found a candidate solution. Ethereum have found a candidate solution themselves, but we do have the best solution. We're very confident that our solution, which we call Threshold Relay, is the best solution that can be found. So that's the second major advancement that is making this suddenly possible. The third advancement is a collaboration between Microsoft, Apple, Google, and the Mozilla Foundation, who make all of the major web browsers, right? Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari, and Firefox. And they have collectively come together to create a way to run software, advanced software written in any programming language you choose, in a internet browser, in a web browser like Chrome. And what's important about that is that in the past, you've only been able to use JavaScript, which is a very easy to use language, and it's good for a lot of stuff, but it's not ideal for all use cases. You can't write financial software in JavaScript. It's not appropriate for it. But now, with this new technology that has been developed by these major players, we can now run any software we like in a browser. But we can also take the same piece of technology and use it to enable us to run any software we like on a blockchain. And this is what has totally cracked open this deep challenge that we've had and made it possible for blockchain to really break out of its niche area where it's been struggling for so long, and finally step out and address major world problems and reach the masses.
Well, do you guys see this project as a solution for the mass adoption issue?
Yeah, I do. I see it as one of the major solutions for the so-called mass adoption problem. You know, these guys are trying to produce an internet supercomputer, which is based on the blockchain. So, if you look at the use of the internet as it is now, if we can bring that back into the decentralized world that it actually came from, then that's a great thing, not just a good thing. It's a great thing, and that's the reason why I can see lots of people jumping on this, especially as WebAssembly will be seen as Web 3.0. So if you have a blockchain entity which is integrated with that, then they're going to both bring each other to the top echelons of the technology.
Well, WebAssembly is one of the key areas of DFINITY, so we're going to have Arthur kind of explain those key areas for us, and the first one up is actually WebAssembly.
The beauty with WebAssembly and with DFINITY, this is a system that you write a program for or an application for, you upload it once, and then it's just there. And if a user wants to use it, they can essentially pay using the DFINITY token to use this application that you've uploaded, or you can fund the application yourself and make it free to use if that's what you would like to do. So it's not just that DFINITY is high performance, and it's not just that it's open it's low cost essentially. It has no capital outlay. It's not just that you can write programs for it in whatever language you choose, and you can trust that your data is never going to be stolen, or the data of your customers. It's that it brings all of these things together. This stuff it's like anything. People need to learn to use it. And the great thing about WebAssembly is that you can just learn to use WebAssembly, and you know what you've built, it'll run on DFINITY, it'll run on a Windows computer, an Apple computer, it'll also run on an Android or an iOS thing. You've just written it once. This is the amazing thing about WebAssembly and why it's changing everything. So if people want to get involved, there are just two things to do. Learn about WebAssembly, learn about functional programming. That's a hard one. You don't have to do that. That's pretty hard, but it is important. And then just learn about the basic structures of blockchain and how they work. And DFINITY will have a developer a software development kit out, and you'll be able to have a play around with that. We have some cool ideas about new software design, new software architectures that'll make it way easier to design applications. We call them web canisters. And so, like, as far as like today, there's not a whole lot to do because we're still building this thing. But right around the corner, WebAssembly is going to open up an amazing number of opportunities and options for people to build and learn about software. And DFINITY is going to offer a novel and extremely powerful, differentiated way to host software. So, as far as education goes, the best piece of advice I can offer anyone is to jump on Wikipedia and start learning JavaScript at least, and from there, I mean, you'll open up an entire world to yourself. The way Threshold Relay works is there's if you're familiar with public key cryptography, this is where you have it's the information equivalent of having one key that locks a door and another key that unlocks a door. Now, you can make as many copies of the key that locks the door as you like, and you can give those to all your friends. You can give those to your mate down the street. You can give those to criminals. It doesn't matter. All they can do is lock the door. All that's important is that you are the only one with the key that can unlock the door. So that's like one thing that we can do with what's called public key cryptography. But the same thing applies to what they call digital signing or signing messages. So this is now stepping outside of the lock and key metaphor, but with digital signing, you have one key that can sign a message and another key that can verify the signature and the fact that it's attached to this message. And that key can be distributed. You can give that to anyone because who cares who can verify a message? What's important is that only one person can sign the message. And what we do with what's called threshold cryptography is it's all exactly the same, only you break these keys, or you break the key that unlocks a door or the key that signs the message up into a number of pieces. And this can be as many pieces as we like. But let's say for the sake of argument and the way that it will probably be implemented with DFINITY, you break it into 400 pieces. And you give those 400 pieces of the key to a bunch of people. Those people need to then sign a message or sign a message and create part of a signature, and then share that piece of the signature with their peers, with their other friends who have that piece of the key. And once they have a majority, that's 201 out of 400 pieces of the signature all assembled in one place, they have a full signature that can be verified by the public key that everyone has that can verify the signature. And so instead of having one person who can sign a message or lock a door or unlock a door, you have 400 people who need to form a majority to create a valid signature or to unlock that door. And so what we do is we use this kind of system to create, first of all, a piece of randomness. Everyone collaborates and says, okay, this is our randomness. And we use that randomness to randomly select 400 new participants from all of the computers that are plugged into the network. And those participants each generate a piece of the key that can sign a message and be validated by a public key that they share publicly. They then sign the randomness that was used to select them using this threshold model. And when they all assemble a majority, a 201 out of 400 signature shares, they can then publish that complete signature, and the entire world can verify it and say, yes, there is no way that anyone could have predicted what this was. There's no way anyone could have predicted who was to create it. And there's no way anyone could have manipulated the outcome of this process, because these people have been randomly selected. There were 400 of them, so no one had a majority control, and they all had to work together. I know this sounds very very arcane, but it's actually really phenomenally simple once you've spent a long time reading about it. The blockchain nervous system is a governance system for the DFINITY platform. There's actually a word for this, and or a phrase for this, and it's opaque liquid democracy. Liquid meaning that you can delegate your vote, and it's highly granular. So you vote on all clauses that come forward, all proposals that are made to govern the network, but also opaque and delegative, and that you delegate your vote, and opaque, and that you can't see who voted what way. So that's the blockchain nervous system.
All right, so we have WebAssembly, we have the threshold relay, we have the governance. Hearing all of that information, what are your thoughts on DFINITY?
It is definitely a project that is needed, and like we said, they have a strong team, and if they get done what they're claiming that they're trying to do, and they already have the test net out and they're working towards it, then I mean definitely the hype for DFINITY for the long-term use of the project and what is needed with Web 3.0 and whatnot for the future. I mean, I think in a clip that we didn't show, he had mentioned that the success of DFINITY is basically inevitable, and I kind of agree. The project is here to stay, and yeah, it's not just a crypto trading play. It's like something that we need, and I think in the future we'll all benefit. Without trying to sound corny, we'll definitely benefit from this project in particular, and other projects like this, which are actually, solving real issues and addressing real world problems.
BlockMaj, before I get to your final thoughts on DFINITY, just because you touched on it there, Crypto Insider X, why don't we actually hear where they sit with their roadmap, their short and long term milestones as well.
So short term, as far as what's coming out in terms of actual shipped code, so we're going to have a developer kit that developers are going to be able to experiment with this week. That's going to be released to a set of partners of DFINITY, and they're going to be able to have a play around with it. If they are happy with it, we'll release it more broadly. Then the next step will be, but that's imminent. So that's going to be out this week, or just not publicly released. It'll be just released to our partners. Then we have a testnet, but we don't have a set date for it, because setting up a testnet is kind of a challenging thing to do, and we'd really like to launch, and we really need to get a public network out there so that people can attack it, and that we can actually test this thing in the wild, right? And really get it battle tested. And so the goal is going to be to get a token transfer only testnet out, or beta network, sorry. So this will be the real network out by the end of the third quarter of this year, of 2018, possibly toward the start of the fourth quarter. And then first quarter of 2019 will be aiming to integrate WebAssembly, the WebAssembly virtual machine into that token-only network, and then we'll be away. DFINITY will be up and running, and the next step will be to implement our sharding techniques that allow it to scale infinitely. But at that stage, it will still be extremely fast, 50 times faster than current Ethereum. And I just want to say current Ethereum because Ethereum is advancing very quickly, and they have some really cool stuff coming out that's worth taking a look at as well. Something they call the friendly finality gadget that will give them basically DFINITY level performance. And the reason is, or something in the same order of magnitude. And the reason is that now the whole space is advancing extremely rapidly. We're seeing a lot of hard problems have been solved. So, DFINITY will be out in a fully functional form at the start of next year. And along with that, we'll be neck and neck with some of the industry's real giants.
So Block Magi, who are some of those industry real giants that they think they'll be out with?
I actually think that they look at this, and when you look at the biggest projects currently in crypto, the biggest coins or tokens, you're looking at Litecoin, you're looking at Ethereum, looking at some, we've got some other ones which are creeping up. So you've got platform projects like Neo, but then you've got these new projects like Cardano, and where their roadmap is going to, and you've got EOS. And so these are probably the big contenders for DFINITY to make sure that it's the field that it's playing in, and that's what I think he's talking about there. So as for whether they're going to get there, I'm quite bullish on this. After deep diving into the project and various areas within it, how they hope to achieve what they've done already, the randomness factor. People really need to actually do research on, because what they've done with that is solving one of the biggest issues within cryptocurrencies and the blockchain right now, and the cost associated with actually trying to get that randomness. And to be able to do that for a minimal cost is massive, because it's the biggest cost that any blockchain has. So by solving that issue is really big.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this project, and really great to have somebody like Arthur be able to explain it to us. And I loved his explanation of everything. But thanks, Block Magi. Thanks, Crypto Insider X, for all of your insight into this project as well. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, do your own research. This is not financial advice. And we'll see you next time.